Georgie. How are you?
Hi.
Are you
Doing
feeling Are you feeling better today?
Yep. No headaches today, so this is good. Just body aches, but headaches are okay.
Oh gosh, it takes a while to work that out, doesn't it?
Does, and I just found out I actually the retina of one of my eyes got detached or partially detached.
Oh
So
gosh. Oh darn. Yeah, it was like I got run over by a Mack truck.
you
Bless
did?
you. No, I said you did. Like just
Yeah.
teasing, laughing, trying to.
Yeah. Yeah. I did. It was an enormous Jeep in my little car. But how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thank you. I need to get some light in here and get this crazy. Yeah, I'm having a really good time. I've gotten over the fact that I couldn't go to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee with my hot rod friends. We did that last year and it was
Oh, nice.
fun. So I had to mope around a little bit because we couldn't go this year. But other than that, things are going good. Thanks. I'm gonna see if I can get my lights turned on here. So yeah, so we're getting ready for the Keller Festival here in Tuscumbia. It's the birthplace of Keller, Aubrey Green, and so everybody, the little town of Tuscumbia is getting everything ready for the big tada. Happens every year.
Nice. Nice.
So
Fun.
I'll interflow in the car show, so we get to live a little bit of that kind of fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cheryl, I don't know if you're there. I'm gonna keep myself off of camera until it's my time to do the practice call. I'm just trying to save my eyes as much as I can from focusing too much on a screen, but I'm here.
Hey, Marcy. Hey, Lori.
Hi.
Hello, hello. We finally got hooked up on our calendar, didn't we? Today for peer coaching. Was that Marcy?
It's me.
All right, Christine.
I'm sorry.
Hello.
Hey, Cheryl, did you get my message by chance on Facebook?
I did.
Is that okay or is that not okay? If it's not
Fine,
okay,
as long as it's fine with Christine.
yeah, she responded and said it was okay. It's just I go into these coughing fits when I talk a lot.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. All right, so
Cheryl, were you able to get the open the second recording I sent you? I
yeah,
think I sent it 2 or 3 times.
yeah, the first time it said,
Yeah, not available or something, but then
Yeah,
I
not
tried again
available.
from different format or different place.
let's see. File not found again.
What's that?
It says file not found.
Oh, that's so strange. I said it in the sent it in the same way that I sent you the first one. It was an MP3. It's
I
downloaded.
mean, MP3s are fine. It says 33.9 megabytes, but I say click to download, and then it says download to your device. I click that, And it says file not found, check the address or ask the sender to send it again. That's the same message I got before.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion of how else I can send it
I would upload it to your Gmail, your Google Drive,
to Google Drive?
and then
Oh.
just send me the link from there.
Okay, I've never done that, but I'll figure that out.
It's pretty easy, very easy.
Okay, so I just go into Google Drive and it has,
Hit new file,
okay,
upload video, and then it click on, after it's uploaded, click on share, just make sure it says view and edit.
okay,
And if it says just view, change it to view and edit, copy
Okay.
the link. Send me the link.
okay, perfect. I will do that.
All right, great. Okay. So before we get started, any questions about anything in the course so far that has come up for anybody? What's in chat here? Am I missing something? Oh, okay. Well, all right. Okay, so I'll be here shortly. Oh, did we hear from Holly? Lori? No,
I'll reach out to her.
thanks. Okay. So I want to reiterate the schedule again. Because I had someone say that we didn't go over this, but I know we did, because I got everybody's availability. So on next week, we have today's the 12th, right? So next week we have Tuesday the 17th. And Thursday the 19th. So Tuesday the 17th is our class 12. The 19th is our third group mentoring. The following Tuesday, the 24th, is our finals. And those finals is everybody meets here. I pair you up, I send you out. You do an hour of coaching, 30 minutes you coach, and you record your own session, and then you flip, and then the second coach records that second session, and there'll be a form for you to fill out, and I'll go over all that obviously, but you're going to submit that recording and a transcript, or you can submit the money to pay for a transcript. Either way, those get sent in on that form for your finals. Once you're done the recordings, you come back to the class. We make sure that you have sent that form to me and the links. And then we go and we do some prep for the final exam. We're also going to do that on class 12 on next Tuesday. We're going to do some prep for the final exam or the group mentoring class. One of those. We're doing the prep for the final exam, and that you get the written exam that you get with the ICO. And then you still have a third mentoring session, which is that week of the 24th, the week of your final, is also the week of your last mentoring session. Now, if for some reason you fail the final, that third mentoring session, the third one-on-one mentoring session, can be pushed out for you to do another recording as a makeup. So that's fine by me. It just will push out your end date because you'll have to have time to do a recording and submit it. So that will push that out if you need it. Hopefully to, not, well, the next week, but if not, then the following week. So I'll give it 2 weeks after the week of the final for you to have that last mentoring session with a recording to use as a makeup for the final. The other thing is just to do your best recording for that third one-on-one anyway, and we'll just use the one that you submit without you even knowing if you've passed or failed. We can do it that way too. It does not matter to me. It is what is best for you. So the third one-on-one is a recording. You can wait to hear if you've, again, I don't expect anybody to fail, but if you are hesitant when you submit that recording and you feel like it's possible that you failed, we can hold off on that last one-on-one recording until I score it. So that's up to you, or you can submit a third recording just on time and we'll use it as a backup if we need it. That's probably the easier way. But again, I don't want to force anybody into either option. It's really up to you what's best for you. Questions about that? Christine and then Marcy.
I just wanted to make sure I got that right, that I heard you say the 26th for our final.
The 24th is the final in class, right? We come in class and we have I'll send you out for your finals. The 20,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, because it says the 26th on the calendar, in our everywhere it says the 26th.
it says final one-on-one mentoring. I shouldn't have put the word final.
So
Because-
okay, so I have here group mentoring June 17th.
Right,
Right?
that's what I just went over. So class 12 is June 17th, group mentoring is June 19th, the final is June 24th. And then your one-on-one, final one-on-one, the last one-on-one has to be that week unless, again, I'm willing to extend it
Okay.
for that third, recording.
So we just have class Tuesday and Thursday for the next 2 weeks. That's all I need to know, right?
Well, no, it's not class. So you have class Tuesday and Thursday next week.
Yeah.
And then you have the final on the 24th and your one-on-one is, it could be the 26th or the 27th or even the 25th. It's just that week. It's not during
Okay.
class.
Okay.
It's a last one-on-one mentoring session.
Okay, gotcha.
So you'll
So
use
let's-
my calendar and schedule that.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
So to confirm, that mentoring session is gonna go over the second recording? Is that your intention, Cheryl?
That would be the third one. If you haven't had your second, then you're behind. And so that's,
Yeah,
So schedule your second one
I did.
and then we'll worry about the third one.
Okay, got it. Okay, I want to make sure that those are all, everybody good?
But the third one is the recording from class.
Hang on. So you're required to have 3 one-on-one mentoring sessions as well as your 7 hours group, right? So the final is that final in-class performance is a separate thing. Does not count with those 3 one-on-one mentorings. However, I can use the third one as a makeup if we need to for that final. So that it's just a dual purpose at that point. Does that make sense?
Can I ask my questions?
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
ask your question.
Yeah. So when we do the final night and when we coach each other and you send us out into rooms,
Mhm.
is that I'm just a little concerned because I know when we do our one-on-one separately, sometimes we go over that 30 minutes. Is it like an hour on the money? So if the second person coaches and the first person went over, then like what happens within that?
So I'm gonna give you a 5-minute grace period. So you'll have 35 minutes for your sessions.
Okay.
So it'll be an hour and 10 minutes total. And you both need to keep track of it. And if you're at that 35 mark, you stop the recording and you switch.
Okay.
That's how you handle it. So you want to be very
Precise.
of the time, yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Val.
I understood and then I got confused again. We're supposed to have a total of 3 recordings that we go over with you as a mentor.
Mhm.
But something about switching the final and the third that I'm
Not
confused about.
switching. It's if you do the final and you fail it, then you can use that third one as a makeup. That's all you really need to know.
And if we do the final and we pass it,
You still have to do the third one-on-one mentoring. It's just we won't use that as a makeup. It's just there,
Okay.
it's your brain power to know that whether you're using it as a makeup or it's just get feedback.
Okay, okay.
So
So
we-
either way,
Less stress if
Either-
it's feedback.
either way, thank you. Either way, we do the same thing. It's just
Yeah.
whether we need it. Okay, that's, my brain can handle that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Okay, good. Okay, so today we are on chapter 11. Was there any questions on last week's chapter? Okay, so our chapter tonight is trauma-informed coaching. I debated whether to use this material because I created this trauma-informed segment of my coaching for a select group of people. And I always am very careful that we make sure that we're not talking about trauma that needs mental health help. Okay. So always keep that in mind whenever we talk about trauma. It's not anything about diagnosing or treating trauma in any way. There's no treatment involved, there's no diagnosing involved. But it is a space where we can create a safe environment, for any client, because first of all, trauma can be, is very personal. It's their own definition of what trauma is. I mean, I know there's a specific definition for trauma, but everybody has their own definition and how trauma affects them. So we want to kind of recognize that, the impact of one type of trauma on one person is very different than the impact of the trauma on someone else, of the same trauma. So we want to look at the things that can show up for people when there's trauma involved. Things around behavior, things around beliefs, things around presence. But we can create an environment, a safe environment for everybody, no matter what the trauma is. And while we might have to get specific with questions and that type of thing, and honoring how people are going through that trauma, based on them, the individual, that doesn't mean that we can't still create an environment that is goes from session to session, from client to client, something that gives you that steady experience, or gives the client the steady experience with you, no matter what's going on. So we're going to be talking about in this chapter how emotional intelligence, with really active listening and coaching presence, can create a really great foundation for trauma sensitive work. And I will say that sometimes your clients aren't going to share the actual trauma story, but you'll have other indicators that there's been trauma, and we still need to honor them even if we don't know the story, and we don't want to ask questions. We want to get permission first to ask questions around it, and you might not get that permission, and that's okay. And so we have to make sure that we remove any bias around that, because sometimes it's a struggle to feel like we want to help somebody when they're not sharing what's going on. And of course, as coaches, we have to kind of not think that way. So we want to make sure that we show up again consistently, that we always have empathy, that we remove any bias, that we respect the client's decisions and their beliefs around what's going on, and that and we can challenge some of those beliefs. I'm not saying that in a certain way, but we want to be respectful of those beliefs, any boundaries that they put into place around it. And we want to have patience, because some people take longer to feel comfortable to talk about things or to work through things surrounding trauma. And when we are able to create this environment with these things present, then we're able to help foster healing and transformation a whole lot quicker and easier for the client than if we wind up like challenging in a way that is not beneficial to the client. Let's turn this off.
Cheryl, do you find that sometimes, like, maybe you're not classifying yourself as a trauma-based coach, but you end up working with folks who have trauma just because of day-to-day life as part of their everyday coaching?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, especially it depends on your niches as well. You might get more so in certain niches that are not specific trauma, but specific to trauma, but it shows up in trauma. I mean, trauma shows up in it. But it can definitely show up no matter what your niche is. But I would say like for Recovery Nation, which is, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I have the nonprofit that's for addiction recovery. It's full of trauma. And so I'm not a trauma coach. Like I don't market myself as a trauma coach, and our organization doesn't say that we have trauma coaches, but those coaches have to know how to coach around trauma because it shows up 4 out of 5 clients show up with trauma in addiction recovery, either on the addict side or the partner side, especially on the partner side, I should say, because although addiction can be brought about by tons of different things, the partner usually is the trauma comes from the addict, especially in Recovery Nation. We deal a lot with sex, porn, and love addiction, so it shows up a lot. So yeah, you don't have to specifically be a trauma coach, and that's why I kind of again was kind of like, is this something that we should know? And I feel like every coach should have a basis in this, because if it shows up and then you're stumbling around, you're not confident about it, or you're wondering, oh, do I challenge them here when they're saying like this felt like this, and maybe I'm looking at it and saying it doesn't look like that, you know, that can get confusing. And so, especially if you're not used to coaching people through bigger events, right? So anyway, so I thought it was really important that we look at it. Okay. So the important note I put into this chapter was that trauma-informed coaching is not therapy. The coach doesn't diagnose, treat, or even process trauma, because processing trauma requires usually mental health piece, right? And we're not going there. We can help them process the effects or the actions, the things that need to happen, or the things that are happening and they're trying to change the outcome, how it affects them. We can do that. Like affects their life, their decisions, that type of thing. But again, the mental health piece, that's not us. That's not going to fall under the coach. And so we support them. We help them to look at, the present, what's going on now, and forward. How do they want to make things happen going forward, or change, or what have you? And growth, and then create their own safety, their own boundaries, their own way to heal. Like we can help them with those things, especially when we look at values and boundaries, creating those boundaries around the values, which is, a good foundation for any type of trauma or bigger event type situations for people. Now, if the client's needs exceed this scope that we're going to talk about, you're going to refer them out to a licensed mental health professional, because trauma can have so many things, so many pieces to it. If you're not trained specifically for it, you can make things worse. And so we have to remember that. that we might have the biggest heart, and I believe coaches have the biggest hearts, but, and we want to help, we have that drive to help people, but we have to know that there's an end to when we can help, where we'll start to hurt, and we'll start to hinder people. Okay. So we want to understand trauma in the context of coaching. So it's not just a past event. So, a lot of times when we think about trauma, it's something that happened when people were, children, or, it doesn't have to be children, but like a previous time, right? You're hardly ever going to get somebody in the middle of the trauma that's going on. In that case, there are other things need to be taken into consideration, like, do we need to call police or DHS, or, are there other factors involved there that we need to get other people involved in it? But it's not that just that past event that creates trauma. It's the impact it leaves on our nervous system, our beliefs, our sense of safety, our values. It erodes our values. Or sometimes it strengthens the values, or actually not, I won't even use the word strengthen. It blows the values up to the point where they're not sustainable, because that's the safety that they're trying to create, and it may be unrealistic, or they're trying too hard, or they're things that are just out of bounds, or out of reach. So we have to think about those things as well. And sometimes clients don't even name their experience as trauma, but you notice some signs. And that's something to think about as well, because I've had clients, especially on Recovery Nation, that they've shut everybody off. They said they're just protecting themselves, and they feel like that's a good response, and it just makes sense. It's kind of that mentality of, well, this is what I need to do, and so I'm going to do it. It makes sense. It's it's going to protect me, and they don't understand that they're cutting off a lot of growth area, and they're cutting off a lot of pieces of their life. And so sometimes they're not going to see these things, and they don't consider it trauma. Like some people that say, oh, well, something happens to everybody, or everybody has problems. Well, yeah, everybody has problems, but that doesn't mean that yours aren't important, and what happens to you isn't important to you and hasn't affected you, right? And so you have to watch for those kind of clues that you see with people as well. But some things that you might notice are kind of hypervigilance or emotional shutdown, difficulty trusting or opening up, disassociation during reflection, over explaining, or the minimizing, which is kind of what I was just saying. And again, you don't need to know the whole story to offer that, that space for trauma-informed coaching, because the safety is built through your presence, not your performance. You don't have to, you're being present, being empathetic. That sometimes is enough. Like, you don't have to be this top trauma coach, right? This trauma, you don't have to be niched into trauma coaching. You just have to have an idea of how to notice things that are going on for clients and how to help them move forward with it. And then just kind of a reminder here is that trauma-informed coaching focuses on the present experience of the client, not the details or the emotional processing of past events. Now, they may choose to share those details with you, and that's fine. You don't need them, right? We don't ever need the whole story to coach anybody around a story. But we do need to know what their perception is around it, but we don't need to know the whole story. And so you might not ever get that whole story, and that's okay. You don't have to have those details. And they may not have emotionally processed it yet, and that's fine as well. Again, we're not mental health professionals. So we're looking at the present experience and how to help them move forward with something. And it may be based on that trauma, and you may not know everything about that trauma, but you'll know what's going on now, right? They're going to tell you, well, I want to get this done, or I'm trying to accomplish this, but this is getting in the way. And so you'll have an idea of what is, the obstacle here and what's causing it. And you can take that and move forward from it. So some principles to think about for trauma-informed coaching is it invites the coach basically to prioritize the safety of the client, so physical, emotional, and psychological safety. Meaning, if you feel like there's something to challenge the client on, this is just one area to think about for safety. You need to really double check it 2-3 times in your head before moving forward with it. Because is it out of what you think they should be doing, right? Is there some bias in there or some justification that you're coming up with that is not necessarily the best for the client or the only way for the client, right? Sometimes things will come up and you can try different questions or different or ask the client about different focuses or different paths. And then you might think that there's a block that neither one of you is able to get past. And then you just might be a little bit more open and saying, I feel like I'm not sure where you want to go from here. Right. And then you can put it back onto the client and see how they want to go from there. But you do want to create that safety for them. You also want to prioritize the trustworthiness and the transparency. So making sure your agreements are really clear about what is shared, what's not shared, that you've done that in your signed agreements, but you've also done that in your onboarding. So they know that, that they can share something with you if they want to. And that starts to create that confidence. And then of course that you're consistent with the trusting and the transparency. And that the third thing is choices, right? So you're always offering options and respecting boundaries. Again, it's not our way, right? It's the client's way. So that means that we're going to try a couple different things that we feel we're getting from the client. And especially after asking them, where do you want to go from here? What would best serve you in this instance? What do you feel we need to cover in order to get to that outcome that you want? We are giving the client the choice, right? And that's how we offer options, is by doing that, giving the client the choice. And we're respecting boundaries when they say, well, I do need to, fix this, but I don't really want to go into that. And the reason why I actually stress this part is because of respecting boundaries, is because there are some coaches that will say, well, how can we help clients if we don't push them beyond, where they want to be right now? So in other types of coaching, that typically can work if your client has given you permission to do that and you're coaching with them. But in trauma-informed coaching, it's not something that you're going to do. It's not something that we do. We don't risk it, right? We don't risk the harm that could come out of it. So again, just trying to take that into consideration. And then collaborations. So you're co-creating that direction, again, just by the things that I've said, putting it back to the client. Where do you feel we need to go from here? What do you want to cover in order to get there? What do you feel is the best path for us to go down right now? And then also keeping a good pace. Sorry, I got my. Anyway, so their pace, right? So we don't want to rush the client, and nor do we want to slow them down too much. Now, if somebody's like, going really fast through something and you feel like they're just not going to retain it or they're not going to be able to, get to the outcome that they want or have success, then you can slow it down by saying, I've noticed that we've kind of rushed over this A, B, and C. Are you confident that you're going to be able to get to the outcome that you want, even though we're not kind of, taking it slow here? You can put it back to the client that way. But the pace is really, it's a collaborative, right? The pace and the co-creating direction. And then empowerment. So validating strengths, not just struggle. It's so easy when somebody's telling you, you know, the horror stories that can come out, right? It's easy when they're telling you those things to validate their struggle. Because we do want to do that to a certain extent. We do want to, understand that this is a struggle, understand that, yeah, I get why you're having problems here, or I get why this is trauma, or this is, difficult. So it's good to validate that, but it's also equally or more so important to validate the strength that it took them to go through that struggle, or the strength that it's taking them now to move forward from the struggle, whatever has crept up from it. So make sure that you are empowering both sides of it, not just the struggle side, but also the strength side. And I don't mean, by the way, I don't mean like we should be glib about it, right? Oh, that took a lot of strength. Okay, but I'd rather you look at it from his perspective of what did the client specifically just say, and how can you reflect that back where you are validating that strength for them and not just saying that took a lot of strength. I feel like, that could be empowering, I guess, but I just feel like that's not as strong as taking what the client's words were and reflecting that back in a way that they're going to be able to relate to it a whole lot better. Okay. And then also looking at cultural humility. And this might be something that you might have to do a little bit more research on because I don't really go into it that much in this chapter, but it's really where we are respecting context, identity, and lived experience within their culture. Now, culture can be a whole lot of different things. I'll tell you what, a culture can be a neighborhood. It can be a family. It can be, it could be your history. It could be, relatives. It could be your country. It could be, there's a ton of different ways culture shows up in us and in our clients. And so we want to make sure that we ask questions that help us understand their context and how they identify in their own world, whatever that is to them, whatever that culture is to them. And that we also honor the experiences that they have lived, because that counts towards their culture, right? It adds up towards their culture. So when we look at these principles, they align naturally with the ICF's emphasis on presence, trust, and non-directive exploration. That's what these are all based around. And the tip here I have is not to explore around, the goal isn't to explore around the past, but it's to support clients in making grounded, empowered choices in the present to move them forward in the future. So some things to think about. Well, I'll stop there. Questions about any of that? Okay. Okay, so when we look at self-regulation and nervous system awareness, our own presence as the coach is part of the container that we create for the client, right? That's why we talk about emotional intelligence. The better our emotional intelligence is, the better container that we create for our clients, the more we can help them as well with their emotional intelligence. But when we are trauma informed, it includes noticing what's happening within ourselves and how it might influence the space that we create for that client. So if you're coming to the session highly agitated, anxious, whatever it is, rushed, we have to take notice of that and we have to let it go before we get into our sessions. And this is where I always say 10 minutes before every session, you should be looking at your notes from your previous session just to give you some grounding into the current session. You're letting go of anything that's happened in the day, whether it's client-based, home-based, work-based, whatever it is. You're letting all that go. And that might mean that you do some deep breathing. It might mean that you do some meditation or whatever it is for you to let those things go so that you become more grounded. Especially if there's some high emotional things that have happened. And I'll be honest with you, I have rescheduled appointments if I was emotional about something, because I can't show up for my clients in the way that I need to if I am highly emotional and it's too soon for me to have let it go, like to adjust to it. And that could be, many different things. And so you want to make sure that you're doing that as much as possible, that you're getting grounded, that you're not activated, that again, your emotional intelligence is on level with how you want to show up in your sessions. And then also think about, are you holding space or are you trying to fix or avoid? So remember, we don't want to be fixers. So hold that space for the client to make the decisions to lead and to make decisions on how they want to go, the direction that they want to go in, how they want to handle things. And then also think about, what can you do to re-regulate before, during, or after the session. So again, I always say before the session, taking that 10 minutes, grounding yourself in that client by looking at the previous notes that you've had on them, that, just getting a feel for and getting in that space of that current client coming up, and then you're letting go of everything else. You can do a very simple 2 to 3 minute meditation or visioning or something like that, right? That's going to help, again, ground you and regulate any emotions that might be off. Now, you might get triggered during a session because, you know what? We have trauma too, right? And again, it could be different things, different trauma for different people. It shows up differently for people. And so, and I'm just going to give an example because I know this, Lori, has had cancer and had it come back worse. And she deals with people that have cancer. And so those clients can be triggering, right? It's a trauma response. It's very easy to have a trauma response to it. But you don't, because you ground yourself before you get in there. And that's what we have to look at. What are we doing to let go of those things? And a lot of coaches coach people around what they've been through, right? So how are you regulating yourself? How are you becoming grounded for your clients? And how are you during a session when things are very close to what you've been through? How are you handling that? And hopefully during the session, you're able to turn it off. And then after the session, come back to it. Don't turn it off and not come back to it, because that'll just add up. And after 2, 3, 4 sessions with somebody, it's not going to be manageable for you, right? So you want to turn it off, your own reaction during the session, and then come back to it after the session. And how best for you can you process that? And that's something individual as coaches that we have to come up with for ourselves. How do we process those things when they come up? Okay. Other things you can look at is the breath anchoring, just deep breaths, some things that you can do before sessions. You can do movement or body-based rituals after emotional sessions. So you can go to the gym. I know people that do that. They will just get up and just go to the gym and work it out that way first, physically first, and then they can do it mentally or emotionally, because they've let the activated emotions out through the gym, whatever that means for you, again. And then during sessions, if something comes up and you need a second in order for you to turn it off or to put aside, you need to ask for that. And you don't need to share anything. You could just very simply say, is it okay if we take a breath? Right? You can just ask that permission and just take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, and help you regulate yourself. And in that moment, you'd be helping the client most likely as well, because you're asking them to take the breath with you. Okay. Coach tip for here is your nervous system shapes the pace, tone, and safety of the session. So, and even before you speak, because you're bringing a certain energy, right? And that energy creates safety or not. So you have to be careful of the energy that you're bringing in, again, the pace, the tone, and the safety that you're creating for that client. The next section we talk about EQ and trauma-informed coaching is basically emotional intelligence supports trauma sensitive coaching by helping the coach remain regulated, curious, and compassionate. Curious for the client, not curious for us, right? And I will tell you that sometimes one of the hardest things to do is not be curious about something that's happened to your client and they're not sharing it. I mean, that's, it can be like disappointing or something. I don't know if that's the right word. But we have to find ways to let go of those things because that's our curiosity. It's not, has nothing really to do with the client. So, the EQ sub areas for this chapter are emotional self-awareness, so recognizing your own reactions or triggers, impulse control, so staying centered when a client expresses intense emotion or silence, empathy, of course, tuning into what's felt and not just what's said, and then reality testing, so staying grounded in what's present rather than assuming or projecting, and then flexibility, adjusting pace and structure based on the client's cues. So in trauma-informed coaching, your nervous system becomes part of the container. How you feel matters. And that's really the bottom line of it. Bottom line. Making sure that we know that how we feel and the energy that we bring to a session can affect these areas. And we want to find ways to make sure that we're coming into it as grounded as possible. Questions about that section? Go ahead, Christine.
That one part where you were talking about regulation techniques, where you were saying pause during a session and see if they want to take a breath together, or say, let's take a breath together. How can we do that? Because it's not directing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you need to say, you could say something, this is what I've done. I've said, that was very intense. Would you like to just take a moment and take a breath together? So maybe not we're using the word let's, but also in this case, it's not about the story. It's not about the outcome of the client. It's about that moment of emotion. So the let's isn't so much leading as if you were leading part of the conversation towards the outcome or towards, you know what I mean? It's not the same thing there. And because you may need that break, you might need that breath. So it's a little bit different. You could use the let's, it's not as much leading because you're not leading them towards anything. You're just basically having a breath. But again, you can ask that question instead of saying let's.
I guess I'm just confused about that still, because even if you don't use the word let's, if you're saying, how about we have a breath, you're still directing them to do something.
Well, no,
Is that
you can say, would it be okay if we took a breath?
okay? Gotcha. Okay, I was a little confused there, thinking, and I thought maybe am I taking it too literal, that direction part of it, or
Well, I mean, it is let's is valid as directional when we're trying to direct, when we're trying to have the client go in a certain direction for their topic or their outcome, right? But in this case, we're talking about like an emotionally charged section of the conversation, and we're just asking for a breath. We're not really leading them anywhere, right? So you may be a little literal, but just ask. Just ask.
thanks.
Question. Yeah, that was really good question, Christina. I've got a question about co-creating, and then no, we can't say let's. I want to know specifically because I heard earlier you don't say tell me. Okay, check. But we're co-creating, and Christina just brought that up. And let's tell me about the co-creation and these specific words that we're not supposed to use. Are there any more?
Well, anything that is leading, basically, right? So when you say, let's do this, and you're taking the client in a direction in the conversation, then you're leading them versus saying, where would you like to go from here? Or what makes sense for us to cover now, right? When you say tell me, you're directing them to tell you something versus asking a question. So the tell me is more like a close-ended type, I want to know this type of thing. Tell me this. The let's is more of, oh, well, I think we should go this way. Let's go do this. Right? So that's really what you have to think about, no matter what the words are. I don't have a list of these words, but the ones that stand out prominently are the tell me and the let's. Because let's is let us do this. Let us go here. Let us, cover this. And we want to, once you get, especially to PCC level coaching, we want to make the client make those decisions, not us, because that is leading. That's us making the decision. Anyone else? Okay. So I do have some language here that you want to be aware of, and what you can avoid and things that you can try. It's just a couple phrases that sometimes can unintentionally shut down a trauma sensitive conversation, and what you could potentially say instead. So avoid saying, why do you feel this way? Because you're asking somebody to justify their feelings. Instead, what was the experience like for you? Or how did that affect you? You can ask different ways, ask that question different ways. But what was that experience like for you? How did it affect your mindset? How did it affect your body? Depending on what you're talking about. Avoid saying you're safe here, because that's telling somebody how to feel. So we do want to create a safe space, but that's going to fluctuate per client. I mean, we can kind of have basics in place, obviously, basic coaching techniques and emotional intelligence techniques. But each person has their own thing that makes them feel safe. So instead of saying you're safe here, ask the client, what would help this feel like a safe space? Or what would help create a better, safe environment for you in these instances when they're sharing those difficult things? We want to have the client have input into it, because it's their time, it's their their trauma, their space, their topics, whatever it is. And so we want to give them the choice. What would help this feel like a safe space for you? Or what can I do to make this feel safer for you? Now this is going to be this next one. I know I'm going to get some questions here. So sometimes we might want to reflect back by saying, it sounds like yada, yada, yada. And that can be very interpretive on our end, right? We're interpreting. Instead of saying, I'm hearing a lot, of yada, 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 what feels most present for you? So we're reflecting back the exact words we're hearing, or tone that we're hearing, or maybe seeing facial expressions or whatever, right? Like, we're going to reflect back specifically what we're hearing, seeing, feeling, whatever, and ask a question for the client to then give us, feedback on it. I don't like the it sounds like, because it sounds like when we say that, we're interpreting things that mean what they mean to us. And we don't want that. We want to know what it means to the client, or feels to the client. So language is a tool. Of course, as coaches, language is our best friend. Sometimes it cannot feel like our best friend. But when we look at it in trauma-informed spaces, we need gentle, spacious language that, again, creates that that safe, present, empathetic, supportive feeling for clients. Okay, so some things to look out for, some red flags and boundaries. Again, we're not therapists. There are times when a client may need to pause coaching or seek therapeutic support, and that's okay. And most likely they're going to come back. So it's very rare that I have a client that does not come back, especially on Recovery Nation, because we are Recovery Nation, about 75% of our clients we refer out to therapy. Now, sometimes we work in conjunction with a therapist, and sometimes they go do the therapy and then they come back to us. It depends on the situation. But very few don't come back to us because of what coaching is. So, some red flags that might give you an indication that it's time to make a referral out, or at least have a conversation around it, is repeated disassociations or overwhelm in a session. And that basically shows up as like shutting down. When somebody disassociates, they're shutting down. They don't want to continue on that line of questioning, which of course is their choice, but you notice it repetitively. Like when you get to a certain point, they disassociate from it and they don't want to deal with it anymore. And that could be a really big red flag, as a matter of fact. And then if the request for advice or guidance in areas outside your scope, especially if they repeat it, like if they are continually asking for your advice around certain things, those certain things are typically something that needs to be addressed. And if it's not, if you're looking at it and saying that's not really a coaching area for me to help them with, then it's usually a red flag for you to refer out. Any disclosure of abuse, suicidal ideation, or unprocessed trauma that halts the coaching process. And I want to go over this because I had a client that, was very adamant that suicide ideation does not have to go to a mental health professional. That they were able to coach people through it and they successfully have done that. And that's all well and good. But that one person that you can't coach through it because you didn't put them in touch with a mental health professional, that's the problem right there. That's the issue. There's a lot of things that we can like technically we could coach people through. But that one or two people that you can't, because they really need to process it from a mental health perspective and they need somebody that's experienced and can get to the underneath it all or give them tools to process things the way that we cannot. Those are the ones that we have to look out for. And since you're not going to know who those people are, you can't make blanket statements like that. And you can't you cannot treat everyone with the hope of, oh, well, I can help most people. Why do I have to refer them out? Because we don't do that. And because of the tragedy that can happen very easily. Look, I had a client whose 12-year-old son committed suicide. Nobody thought that kid was going to commit suicide. Nobody. But he had mentioned some things. And as parents, you don't want to believe it, right? You don't want to believe that your kid could do that. It doesn't sound serious. And people say that's ideation, that's suicide ideation. They're not really making plans. It's just like this abstract thing. Well, abstract deserves attention. And we have to understand that. Not all suicide ideation is going to lead to suicidal attempts. In fact, most don't, again, because that's why they call it ideation, because it's just this, again, not really connecting to the idea, but having an idea. So we cannot make those decisions. We cannot decide, is this serious ideation or is it just ideation? Like we can't do that. Anytime that anybody's talking about it, all they need to do is have a conversation with a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist even. Like they just need to have a conversation. That doesn't mean they're going to wind up in therapy because, maybe they won't. Probably, I don't even know what the numbers are, but maybe like half of them don't. I would say that's probably a safe number. 50% don't need therapy. But they need to process those thoughts and they need to know how to process those thoughts if they come up again and maybe they're a little stronger, the second time or the third time. So any type of, ideation, suicidal ideation, any type of disclosures of abuse, or unprocessed trauma that can halt coaching sessions or progress, should be referred out. Now, when I say referred out, you want them to see somebody quickly. This isn't like, oh, okay, I'll do it next month. No. I'd really like you to see somebody, in the next week or two, find somebody in your area. And sometimes I help people, like, let's pull up your insurance. Let's look at the therapists that are in your area, go to psychology.com, whatever, right? Some people feel overwhelmed with trying to find a therapist. You can help them do that. You're halting your coaching anyway. You can help them to do that. You can give them a phone number. Here, start here. Give them the suicide prevention line. Something you can help them in some way if you feel that's necessary. But
you ever transfer someone to the suicide hotline?
I have not. I have called 911 though.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done that because to me it just felt immediate, and I was like, okay, and actually I've done it 3 times. One of the times it didn't feel very immediate, but the way they explained it to me, it had been constant over the last couple weeks. I was like, I don't want to deal with that, and so I called. And I'll tell you that the one thing that I always hated about the ICFs, they had this 10 reasons to refer out or whatever sheet that they gave out years ago. They don't do it anymore. But one of them was like, tell them to go to the emergency room. I'm sorry. If somebody's considering, harming themselves, telling them to go to the emergency room is not going to do any good. And maybe even giving them the hotline number is not going to do any good. But at least that's more functional and more action oriented than saying go somewhere, So anyway, you have to use your best judgment there, but as long as you're discussing it with them and saying you need to do your part, and then after that it really is up to them. It's not our, I don't want to say it's not our job, but it's not our responsibility because we're not there with them. We're usually over Zoom or on a call, a phone. So there's only so much that we can do, but we want to do the best that we can. And then same thing with abuse. If you come across knowledge from the client brings it up that they're being physically abused, sexually abused, even emotionally abused to a certain extent, we definitely want to refer them to an outside source. Now, sometimes that's not going to be a therapist. Sometimes that's going to be the police or like DHS. One of the examples I used to give off that list of 10 things that the ICF gave us. One of the examples I used to give is like you're on the phone with your client and the client is upset because their child, that they came home from work and they hit their child and their child was crying and had, a little bit of a welt on their bottom from getting hit. What do we do in that instance? First of all, where are they located? Is it against the law for them to hit their children? That's one thing to think about. But more so on the other side, the more humane side is like, okay, the child has a raised, sore bump, whatever it is. That's probably, you need to take action. That's probably something that you need to take action with. And it might be just like, you need to take your child to the doctor or the ER or the hospital and get checked. And then we can discuss what happens after that. And you need to tell them how they got that. Right. And that's, yes, we're being directive. We're saying this is what you need to do. Now, the same thing if the parents on the phone with you and they're really upset because they came home from work and their child has a lump on their arm, it's swollen. And they asked the other parent what happened, and the other parent said, I don't know. So is there a feeling there that maybe there's some abuse going on? Or, what are the potential things that could have happened? Like, how do you help somebody navigate that? Now, the first thing is to help them ask questions. Like, was the child alone? Do they have feeling like something happened? Are there times where they feel like the other parent is too stern or abusive verbally, or, whatever? Like, you have to ask some questions there. But ultimately, how do you advise that client? And we have to be careful about advising, but how do you advise that client? And you always want to err on the side of caution, especially for children, because they can't speak for themselves usually, or they don't know how to speak up for themselves. And so we want to err on the side of caution. Now, if somebody's talking about, and goes for elderly as well, sometimes, I've been on calls where I feel like the parent is not being treated very well. And just from what the client's telling me, and the client has those suspicions as well. So what do you do there? Well, and this is very easy to turn back to the client and say, well, you're feeling like it's like there's something going on, like there might be some excessive anger issues or what have you. What can you do in your area? What can you do immediately in your area where you live? Like, what's available to you? I don't know what's available to me. All right, well, let's do a Google search. Help the client search what they could do. Who can they report to? What can be done here? Is it just a matter of taking them to their doctor and having the doctor look at them and say, is this something that can be happening regularly, just with no, no interference from an outside source or whatever. So anyway, you want to just help your clients to figure that out when there's any kind of abuse, suicidal ideation, or any unprocessed trauma that halts progress. Now, when coaching becomes centered around the past, unprocessed emotional wounds or trauma processing, it's time to refer them out as well. Especially if the client keeps going back to it. This is always a sign that something's unprocessed, right? The client keeps going back to something over and over again, 1, 2, 3 times, there's something there, and they're not sharing everything with you because there's trauma behind it, then that's definitely a referral out.
If you're a required reporter for child abuse, because I'm a guardian ad litem, so it puts me in the, so I mean, that doesn't necessarily give me a choice of how to, do you just say, would you just be, obviously you're gonna have to tell them that, like, I'm a required reporter.
You have to tell them. And you have to tell them as a coach. It's ethically, we have to tell them if we're reporting them. That's just the way it is. And you just tell them, the best thing to do, and you might get flack, but that's just the nature, I guess. But you just say, I want to let you know that I'm a mandatory reporter, and in this case, because of this reason, I'm going to have to make a report. And then you can talk through that with them if they're open to it, right? You can coach through how they would handle, somebody coming out, and you can talk about being honest and showing, whatever. Like, there's ways you can do that afterwards, but then you're coming outside of your coaching role at that point anyway. Yep. And although we don't have that label as mandatory reporter, it says in our ethics that we have to take action. So I just call us mandatory reporters because, you have to take action. So there's something's got, you either have to report, or you have to call the police, or you have to do something. So, we're mandatory action takers. All right. So what are some actions? We can normalize the need for additional support. We can offer resources, not diagnosis, and we can consult with a supervisor when needed. Definitely, if you're feeling the pull and you're not sure which direction to go in, you can always, contact me, or if you have somebody else, that's coaching, supervisor or what have you in your world, we'd be happy to coach you around how to handle that. Some sample language. It sounds like this is bringing up something really important. I want to make sure you're fully supported. Would you be open to exploring other forms of care alongside our coaching? And hopefully you're going to get a yes there. But if you get a no, why do you feel that way? Is that a good question? No, it's not. You can say something like, what makes you feel like that wouldn't be supportive for you? Or what would be a better way for you to feel supported? Yeah, again, different. You have to use your language, obviously. I'm just giving you examples of my language. But yeah, things for you to consider. Okay. So some techniques that I have in this chapter for trauma sensitivity. So somatic check-ins, just kind of gently guiding clients to check in with their body, but only if they're ready. So what are you noticing in your body right now? Is your chest, if your chest could speak, what would it say? Just, again, you have to come up with your own language. But the somatic check-ins are good, no matter if it's trauma coaching or sometimes it's other types of coaching, right? But we kind of went over those somatic techniques or supporting things that you can do. So consider that body check-ins are really good because you can typically anxiety can definitely be seen or felt in somatic check-ins, and they can express it better. And then sadness, fear, those type of things are going to show up when you do those type of check-ins. And then there's consent-driven coaching. So ask before inviting emotional exploration. So would you like to go deeper into that or stay where we are now? Is this an okay space to explore that further? And that's that permission, right? We need that permission. And then pacing and pausing. So let silence do the work. Invite reflection, but don't force it. Take your time. There's no rush here. Just slow it all down. And then resource anchoring. So help clients identify internal or external resources. Who or what helps you feel most grounded when things feel uncertain? Gentle inquiry. So using softer language and invitation-based phrasing. So I wonder if yada, yada, yada would be helpful. What's present for you now? Things that have the body, have the client check in with their body or their emotions or their thoughts. The other thing that we want to consider is normalizing kind of missteps and then repairing. So, everybody makes mistakes. No, not one coach is perfect. And I don't care who they are. I don't care how big they are. I don't care how long they've been doing it. So what matters most is how we take responsibility and repair with care. So when you notice a misstep, and I didn't even use the word mistake, just a misstep. But sometimes we feel like it's a mistake that happens. So when you notice it, just pause and name it. Invite feedback, reaffirm safety and partnership. So you could say something like, I may have asked that too quickly. How did it land for you? Again, I use the let's here. Let's pause for a moment because we're not directing the conversation. We're not giving them directions as far as the topic or the outcome. We're pausing for a second right here. I want to make sure I'm not rushing us. So it's about us at that point, not the client really. And if I said anything that didn't feel helpful, please let me know. And by the way, if that's going to confuse you to use let's in that way, don't use let's in any way. But if I said anything that didn't feel helpful, please let me know. And we kind of look at our these missteps as a way to get feedback, not as failure. It's a way to communicate too, right? To enhance communication with our clients. So in order for us to connect better with the client. And it's very simple. to do this. And there might be something where you say, I feel like that question might not have been the best question for you. It could even be something simple as that. Or sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done this, but you've asked a question and you might feel like a cold breeze just went over. Like, oh, that probably didn't land well with the client, right? And so you just say, after I asked that question, I felt like, maybe that bothered you, or that brought up some feelings in you. And I want to apologize if it was negative. Would you like to share what came up for you? So that I know and I can learn. Like, we have to learn our clients' languages and how things affect them. And I don't mean that you have to customize everything, because I talk about this sometimes and I get some feedback like, well, we can't customize everything that we do for every client. That's not what this is. It's not about customizing for each client. It's about connecting with each client. Like, you have to look at each client as an individual and you have to connect with them. And that might be in this way. Okay, so let's look at some scenarios here. Your client shuts down after briefly mentioning a painful past event. They say, I don't know why I even brought that up. How can you create safety without needing to resolve the story or hear the story? Who'd like to share? Kim?
Yeah, I would ask if they want to go further with that, or if they would prefer to talk about something else.
Okay.
Because
What else?
sometimes like things happen when you feel safe, right? Like, and so if they're feeling safe, I mean, anything can pop up. And so, I mean, it could be a good thing, right? And
It could be.
yeah, and just, but they're shutting down. Yeah, because, yeah, it's interesting.
Anybody else? Marcy?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking along the lines of what might make you more like, because right, the answer is, sorry, I can't run both my monitors, my other computer's dead right now. But if they said we can't, I'm not sure why I brought that up, and you could say I don't know. I do really bad when you pull these one-off scenarios out. I mean, I guess I would want to know, would you like to discuss this further? What would you would you like to explore the reason this maybe came up for you?
Yeah, because they're telling you something by saying, I don't know why I even brought this up.
Yeah, so I would want to know, like, is that, but because if it's a trauma situation, give them the choice of if it's something they want to explore versus just diving into it.
Yeah. So you could say something like, that's interesting. You're not sure why you brought that up. Would you like to explore it? Simple question, right? Okay. How about what EQ skills help you stay grounded when you're in this situation?
Reality check.
Yeah. That could be part of it. Definitely empathy. And I think flexibility is a big one in this case. Because, you know, the client may not want to go anywhere with it, and that's okay. So we have to be flexible for the client and help them to be flexible in their own moment as well. How about the second one there, over explanation? So your client repeatedly justifies their emotions or choices. They say, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but yada, yada, yada. So what coaching language could normalize and affirm their experience? I don't know. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but you know, yada, yada. What can we, what language can we use there? Or what question can we ask?
What makes you feel that you shouldn't feel a certain way,
Yeah,
whatever that way might be?
why do you think that, why do you feel like you couldn't feel that way? Or
Yeah.
what makes you feel that way? You know, what makes you say that? What else? Was somebody else gonna say something?
What should you be feeling?
That's a good question. What do you think you should be feeling? Yeah. So
So
just
they're
talk about-
obvious. No, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
But it looks like that they're leading to a breakthrough when they said, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but, and you want them to like let the dam open, right? And bring out their feelings. So you could say, what, well, I don't know. Never mind. I just thought I was onto something there.
And this
What
is
makes you not want to say that? I guess. What, and maybe we've just covered that. Anyway, go ahead. Not
I was
making
just saying,
sense.
I just love this conversation because I feel like we all feel the same way. Because there's a little bit of like hesitation, there's a little bit of like not wanting to overstep, there's a little bit of fear, right? Like, so Cheryl, I want to just like say thank you for bringing this up because it's so thought provoking for me, where I'm just kind of like, in the moment, I'm sure we would all be able to kind of like come up with something that serves our client, but trying to kind of like really think it through right now is actually probably the most difficult thing out of everything that you've presented up until this point. And I might be the only one thinking that, but like I just wanted to say thanks,
Oh,
right? Because
thank you for saying that.
we want to like serve the people that we're coaching, and at the same time, like we don't want to overstep, you know? And so Dee, I love that you're like thinking through that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. I
Oh
thought
no, bring it on. I mean, I was stumbling. I was eating my left foot. I didn't know where to go from there. So thank you for the cover.
So I guess my question is, especially because you have a lot of experience around it, you know, in that moment, because I think a lot of times, not that we're going to be surprised, but like sometimes we're a little bit surprised. Like, what is the best thing for us to do? And I know you kind of covered it, but I was kind of like asking a little bit more, like maybe differently.
Here's the thing. We want to affirm their experience. So we want, it's not just asking them to explore why they're feeling that way. We want to also let them know it's okay to feel that way. So there's
Yeah.
a part of it where where it's normal. Like we want to help normalize it. We want to help affirm that experience for them. So, you know I shouldn't feel this way, but when you're asking, what makes you say that, right? You're asking for their experience, and you can help normalize that experience. Well, you know, my coworkers, you know, don't, whatever, don't, I should have had an example, but, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but, uh, you know, my coworkers can really do a number on my confidence.
Mhm.
Okay, so what makes you think that, you know, when you're presented with these things that lower your confidence, that you shouldn't feel that way.
Mhm.
So we're helping to normalize it. We're helping to affirm, like, well, yeah, that's normal for you to feel that way if this is what you're getting from them. So I think that that's how you do it.
Yeah.
I think bringing
it-
it back to the body, Cheryl, to what you were saying earlier, asking a question like, what happens when you feel that way? Might evoke them to describe body sensations that can be more easily normalized.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one too. Definitely looking at the somatic side of it. Thanks. And the second part to this example is, how can you support emotional permission and curiosity? So again, how you address it with the client gives them, you're presenting it in a way that says it's okay how you feel about this. Right? Like, I can understand how that might make you feel that way. You can just make a statement like that. And lets them know that, well, you know, what they're saying isn't crazy. You know, it's not, I can relate to it. Or at least I can understand it. You don't always have to relate, but you can understand it. And that's how you support that kind of permission to feel emotional. And then follow up with a question to help the client. You know, you're helping the client with the curiosity piece. How do we resolve this? How do we address it? How do we, you know, move forward from it? How do you give yourself the permission to feel it? You know, things like that. Okay, is that the last one? Yeah. So third one, identity and safety. Your client shares that they felt judged in past professional settings for their gender identity and are hesitant to show up fully. What trauma-informed principles apply here?
Safety,
Safety, definitely the big one here. What else?
probably trustworthiness,
Yeah.
Cultural humility.
Yeah. Because that workplace is their culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. I think those three are probably the main ones. How can you build authentic safety and cultural humility in your coaching? Not something you're going to answer right now, but think about that. How do you create these things in your coaching in a way that honors your client and helps them move forward towards their goals, and you know, again, feels safe in bringing things up with you, because coaching can be so surface level. It really can. And you know, there's only so far you can get with surface level coaching. And usually at the PCC level, you're not having a whole bunch of surface level coaching sessions. You're really not. If you are using the skills that you're learning, and you know, looking at the PCC markers, looking at the EQ skills, you're going to have much deeper conversations. Your transformations are going to, you know, happen. You're going to be surprised at how much transformation happens versus the surface level, if that's what you're used to. Okay. So trauma-informed coaching is not a method, technically. It is a mindset. It asks us to be attuned, respectful, and grounded. It requires us to coach the human first, the outcome second. So as you continue getting more experience in your coaching, let safety be first and foremost. Stay within your scope and support network, and then use EQ as a steady anchor in emotional complexities, which trauma is emotional complexity. And then just think through, what does it mean for you to be a safe person in a coaching space? Okay. So we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to take 10 minutes. It's 8 o'clock, so we're going to go to 8:10. And then when we come back, we're going to have our coaching session, and I'll see you back here in 10.
Who's coaching? Anybody know? Anybody on?
I think I'm coaching Marcy if I got it right.
Okay, good, because I wasn't sure if I saw my name along the way, so good. Okay,
You're
Thank you.
actually coaching me today, Georgie.
Oh, okay. Oh, because you guys switched. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just have
she-
to
she-
stop when I talk too much. So
Yeah, so we're just gonna switch today.
got it. Thank you.
thank you, Christine. I owe you.
Oh.
Oh, no, you don't owe me nothing. We're good.
Okay. Everybody back?
I've got the hiccups. Won't go away.
Okay, so everybody have your feedback forms out. And I just want a quick reminder that your job in the observation is to look at the PCC markers that are being fulfilled based on the ones that I assign you, and then potentially ones that are not. Nothing more, nothing less. So let's have assigned ones. I'm going to say, Kim, you're going to do 3. Christine, you're going to do 8. No, you always do 8. Oh,
I'm
you're
being
oh,
coached.
sorry. That's right. You are taking Marcy, you're going to do 8. Lori, you're going to do 6. Val, you're going to do 7, and D, you're going to do 5. Did I get everybody? Okay. All right. So everybody can go off camera, and Georgia, you're going to have 30 minutes. It's 8:11 or whatever. So, 40, 45-ish area. Okay.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm glad to be coached, actually. I really need it right now, and I've been coached a lot lately, and it's really helping me. So I'm pretty happy to be coached today, and I'm glad she needed to switch.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Do you need to do anything before we get started?
No.
Okay. So what would you like to explore today?
Well, I've been coached around my dogs and my dog training and my mental state when my husband left regarding my dogs. And then I was coached on my time recently. And I feel like I now need to bridge the gap between the two because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing with both, and it's working very well. But I feel like I'm not really leaving a lot of, I've discovered that it's a lot of work what I'm doing, and I don't feel like I'm leaving enough time for myself. I feel like I might get burnt out. So I think I need to figure out what that looks like. And also, when my husband gets back, I'm just a way better dog trainer than he is. We've always known that, but I need to figure out what that's going to look like moving forward in that time thing, because I might just take over more of it again because it's just working better. So, but how is that going to work with timing and my own ability to manage myself? So that's kind of what I want to talk about. Sorry, did I make that clear at all?
I think what I got is that you shared a little bit of what some of the things that you unpacked in previous coaching calls, and what I captured is that you wanted to bridge the gap between the experience of your husband not being there and your dog training. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and the other things that I'm also doing, because I also started getting up at 4 a.m. instead of 6. So I have more time. Well, not really, but feels like I have more time because it's uninterrupted in the morning. But I've just switched my entire schedule around. And I'm feeling like there's a little bit of maybe conflict I hadn't anticipated. And I need to kind of figure that out moving forward.
Okay. So you were describing, or the question that you were having is around defining or getting more clarity about what that would look like? Is it time management?
Yeah, I suppose it could be considered time management. I have a tendency to forget about myself.
Mm,
And I've noticed over since he's only been gone since Sunday, and I'll like literally spend the entire day doing. And it's like, oh gosh, I forgot to eat. I'm starving, or, and I'm just really bad for that now that he's gone and I have all this time to do stuff. And the way I train dogs is very effective, but it is more work than what he's used to. And I haven't had to do it for a long time now. So I find more of my time is being taken up, and I gotta, I guess, figure out maybe what I'm gonna let go of, or what's most meaningful to spend my time on with how things are changing.
okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of components or part to this bridging
Mhm.
trying to make. What would be most helpful for you to explore today or come out of this session with today?
How I'm going to ensure I do not lose myself in the tasks of the day.
Mm. Okay. Not losing yourself in the task of the day. What comes up as you say that?
So many things. The second I said that, I was thinking about my dog right there. I was thinking about this frickin' freeze dryer that I just bought that's going and it's rattling, and that has to be fixed, and they're getting that done. And I just feel like there's so many things that I'm doing. So
Mhm.
many.
Mhm.
I've got 100 shirts in front of me right now that I am creating for the local hockey team because they need them.
Yeah.
My living room looks like a war zone.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm feeling like maybe I think I take on too much. And in my last coaching session, it was really helpful because it's allowed me to realize, because I have to, before someone phones me now, like if I want to schedule something in, I have to put it in my calendar, and then it's like, oh wait, no, I can't do that because that's, I won't have time for these specific things. And that's made me realize why I now have to figure out how to create the time.
Okay. So how will you know by the end of this call that that you ensure you don't lose yourself, in the task of the day?
Sorry, what was that? I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's okay. The outcome, and maybe we need to refine this, but the outcome that I heard you say was, you said how I'm going to ensure I don't lose myself in the task of the day.
Hmm.
And so the question I'm asking is, how would you know? Are we talking about a strategy, or what is it about that?
Okay. I guess what I want to walk out of here with is specific time designated to figure out what's the best time to designate to myself during the day that is non-compromisable.
Okay, got it.
So that no matter what else doesn't get done, maybe doesn't get done and it has to be pushed to the next day. Maybe in another coaching session, I'm going to figure out what I have to let go of. But for right now, I think in a chunk for today that's manageable, just when can I carve out time to give myself at least, like, say, even 3 short breaks in the day?
And what would carving time out in the day, what would that give you or do for you?
Well, it'll make sure I don't get burnt out. It'll make sure that I get to sit down and eat
Mhm.
without forgetting. I mean, yesterday I set an alarm to eat lunch, and today I ignored it. I did not eat really until right before I had basically this class pushed me to eat because I went, oh, if I don't eat now, I'm not going to be able to eat till like 7 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like that. I want I want it to be where what I'm doing is manageable so that I can be consistent long term.
It sounds like you have good awareness of what you're needing to do to not, like you say, to not get burnt out, and you're sensing where you're at now. How will you know by the end of our session? So you wanted to carve out time, or you wanted to know by the end of this session that you can figure that out. How would you know that you've carved out time? What would that look like as we work through that today?
Well, I'm going to have it written in my calendar. I need to come out of this with at least 3 specific times in my calendar that's written in, that everything else has to work around that. I'll put it in my Calendly. No one will be able to book at that time. It's just unmovable.
Got it. And how are you about holding yourself accountable?
Really good.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't typically require any type of accountability. I mean, if it's something I think that's going to be really difficult for me, I'll talk with my husband about it. But for the most part, I assess every evening how I did that day with my goals before bed, and I set intentions every morning for my day. So if I don't meet that during the day, I will know that I need to course correct somewhere along the line.
Right. Right. And what would help you achieve that? You
Achieve
mentioned,
what?
well, you mentioned 3 specific times, having 3.
What would help me achieve it? I don't know. What do you mean by what would help me achieve it? Like
Well, maybe achieve is not the right word.
an example of what I could.
Well, you mentioned writing in your calendar 3 specific times.
Mhm.
So is it a matter of just doing it in your calendar, or if not, what else would help you do that? Make sure that you do that.
Oh, make sure that I follow through with it. Oh, I will immediately put alarms in my phone.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's a given. Because yeah, I will need that right away.
Great. And
And
what would
after a month or so, I won't.
got it. And during these 3 specific times, what would you be doing?
Whatever I want. I know one of them will be hot tub time. I try to get in my hot tub every day. And I think that's been bugging me. I've missed it many days. I didn't yesterday, but I did today. And that's problematic. So one of them will be hot tub time. I'm just writing now that I think about it. I don't know the other ones. Maybe one will be lunch. No, I don't even want it to really be lunch. I just want to set an alarm for lunch. Now that I think about it, I don't want any tasks. I want to be able to do whatever I feel like during a few breaks of the day. Because my day starts at 4 a.m. and it doesn't end till 8 p.m. And I want a few breaks in there. I
What
just don't know what time would look like.
Yeah, so there are 2 questions there. One is, I love that you made that distinction. You started with a hot tub, and then you were about to include lunch, and then you said, no, I don't want it to be lunch. I want it to be something that is not task. Is there a way, or what would help you create a distinction there in terms of discerning what things get put into that time and what not?
If it's something that brings me joy or peace or relaxation, if it's something that fills my bucket, it has to fill my bucket.
And how do you know if it fills your bucket?
I feel relaxed. I feel peaceful. I feel creative, or I don't have any responsibility. I feel freedom.
Mm. Beautiful. What, as you're thinking of this and you're writing some of these things down, what might be present? What is present for you now?
Well, the first thing I thought of when I thought of freedom is I'm going to need to put my dogs in their playpen all 3 times. And then I can just freely do whatever I want because that means full freedom. I don't let my dogs run around because my boy dog, if it's raining outside, he'll be like, "Oh, look, it's raining. I think I just need to shit in the house." So I'm very careful with him. And that's the only reason why. Eventually it won't be like that now that I'm training him because he's already not doing it anymore, but I need to put them away. And that allows me to just go outside to my studio and, throw a couple pots on my wheel or do something creative that I enjoy.
As you were describing a little bit the how some of these things might fill your bucket, where you would feel and you would know that your bucket is getting filled because you'd feel peace, relaxed, or peaceful, relaxed, creative. As you imagine yourself having those things and having that time to yourself and having that experience, what would that do, and how would that affect your life in general?
Well, I think it would give me a few times a day to just ground me and relax me instead of being in a perpetual state of I need to do this and now I'll move to this and now I'll move to this. And I just really think I need that time to come down, and I think it will just allow me to just feel so much better and relaxed during the day. It's like that time to just stop and chill, and then now I can be focused all over again.
Christine, what has gotten in the way of you doing that until now?
I don't think things have been as busy for me as they are now. With my husband gone, with me taking over the dog training, that's a really big one. Because I always trained the dogs for years. And then I looked at my husband one day and I said, "Tag, you're it. I don't want to do this anymore. I need a break." So then he felt like, "Oh, well, we should just hire a dog trainer then," who was supposed to actually come in and train the dogs. But then she said, "Oh, no, I'm actually going to help you train the dogs." And I'm like, "Well, I'm still out." So now we have this dog trainer that's supposed to help him train the dogs, but I won't even get into it. I just don't really like how she was doing it. It wasn't working, what she was doing. Parts of it were, but most of it wasn't. So now I'm doing it the way I want to do it. And it's going so much better. It's just so much easier. The dogs have learned a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. It's only been like 5 days or something. And they're coming on command and they're just doing what I want them to do. And it's all very positive, nothing punitive, which really keeps me happy. So I need to keep that up. And I think that's the greatest consideration right now is with me taking that over. It's a really big job and I take it seriously, and everything and the mental energy, just going outside, they would run across our yard because we're by the school and they would bark at the people. And I don't let my dogs just run around barking at people. So it's like, okay, I've got to come up with a creative way, that's positive to make sure they're not doing that. So I'm always finding my brain is always thinking now, and I feel more tired now mentally than I used to feel. And I think that's why I need this break. And it's successful what I'm doing. I can take them out now off leash and they don't bark at anyone. It's great, but it's a lot of mental energy. So I think that's what has me thinking of this now, because I'm in a new situation that I wasn't before. And my brain is tired quickly. And so I guess what I'm describing is the need to take a few times a day to recharge.
Yeah. So you've identified by yourself that you are in this new place, right? And that you are having this self-discovery, that you're really happy about how you're doing what you're doing with the dogs. It sounds like it's being really effective. And you're wanting to add some more time, personal time for yourself. And you have the awareness that even, just the specific amount of times that you like to do that, how you'd like to occupy or use that time for yourself to recharge. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, I think I'd like to, I don't know, jump into trying to figure out some times and how I can make that work.
Okay. What is a tangible outcome that you're aiming for here in terms of finding out the times?
Well, like just having 3 times a day. I know the first one is hot tub. Because I start my day at 4 a.m. and from 5 until 7, I'm doing an hour of gardening and an hour of housework, and that's just out of the way. And I think I'd like to just be in the hot tub right after that, relaxing and because I mean I'm with my dogs the whole time until then, and I'm training them the whole time while I'm listening to a personal development book and doing what I need to do. So there's a
Okay.
lot going on there. So I think, yeah, I'd like to jump in my hot tub right at 7, right till probably 8,
Great. How often?
every day.
Okay.
Because I don't sleep in because it's the weekend. I'm up the same time every day.
What is the experience from what you know in your schedule right now? What might need to either be moved, rescheduled, or jostled around to support that?
Well, nothing, because the rest of the world is just getting up at that time. So there's no meetings, no one can schedule anything with me. My time until 9 a.m. is completely my own, and I'm already up for 5 hours by then.
Okay.
So I can get a lot accomplished. That's one reason I like getting up so early. So I think the big issue is going to be the other two.
Okay.
The morning is the easy one. I think maybe one, or I don't know, 7, maybe around noon. Yeah, because it's 4 hours later. So maybe around noon. I don't know what, I don't know. And I think I'd like that to be an hour too, but can I really take 3 hours out of my day? I don't know. If I want to do something creative, I can't go out and throw a pot in like half an hour, right?
How else could you frame this experience? And you mentioned, you wanting to schedule some time in your calendar, but I'm wondering how else could you schedule or reframe or frame this goal that you have of setting some time for yourself?
I don't understand.
So right now you're coming up with these time slots, and maybe that's
Yeah.
what you need to do for your schedule. I'm opening the question here to see is there another way that scheduling some time might be effective or doable?
I don't think initially. I think I need to schedule it out until I become proficient at taking that time every day and that becoming my norm. And then once it's my norm, then I will probably be able to just go by how I feel and say, oh, you know what? I'm feeling like I need a break right now. And then I can go do it. But the problem is I ignore that feeling in myself right now.
Got it.
So,
It's really helpful because of that.
yeah.
So what gets in the way? You started by saying sometime at noon, but then it sounded like you were not
Well,
sure.
nothing, you know what? It was because I was thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't have a whole hour to myself at noon. Well, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I? If that's what I feel I want and that's what I feel I need, then I can do that. I have like a lot of hours in the day and I work really hard and I'm proficient in getting multiple things done at one time, you know? So why can't I do that? I can do that.
There you go. I think that was the reframe.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So like 12 to 1, I can just do that. And then actually in the evening time, I think right now I'm struggling because my husband's gone and I'm used to him. Like normally when he's home, I don't take the dogs out to pee. Once he gets home, that's on him. I can just do whatever I want. Right. And so once he gets home, I'll be able to do that again. But until then, I go and I take the dogs into bed with me into my room and I let them snuggle with me from 7 till 8. And I can use that period of time to just sit there and read a book and relax and do whatever.
How do you feel as you're thinking of that and saying that?
I was just writing that down. That feels really good because I mean I have that that one's a 7 to 8. You know, so I think that's really good timing. I mean from 1 till 7 is 6 hours, but it's good. It's not a hard 6 hours because I end my work day at 4. And then I just take the dogs out and I play ball and I, putter around and do whatever I'm doing. So it's not work time. So it's not like I'm going to be going, oh my gosh, I can't handle that 6 hours. So I think that timing is really good. During the most difficult part of my day, I have a good size break after 4 hours.
Right. And what might get in the way of you taking the time, those 3 times a day?
Well, just if I don't put it in my phone.
Okay. Okay. And who could support you in ensuring that you do take these times?
Me. That's all I need. If I did not do it or if I missed it one day or something, that would be fine. But if I started missing like, 2 or 3 days, I would have to bring in a level of accountability, which would look like talking with my husband and saying, "Hey, this is what I've planned out. I have not yet been successful." And then he would set alarms to connect with me at that point in time in the day and say, well, are you sitting in the hot tub? What are you doing in the studio right now? Just checking. So that's what that would look like.
Right. How do you feel about the progress you've made so far?
Yeah, I feel really good. I feel more focused. It's funny because I went in to a couple coaching sessions ago feeling really unfocused. And then we discussed the dog thing and I implemented this mindset change towards them, which has been phenomenal. And then, I worked with, I think it was Kim the other day and, got that piece done. And now I'm getting this piece done. And I just really feel like it's really quite awesome that, I just feel like every single session I get one more piece of the puzzle in there. And I feel optimistic.
It's wonderful. What actions could you take after our call to that would feel aligned with your goal?
Well, I need to get it in my phone. And I'll do that tonight. Um And then I'll make sure that I start tonight with reading a book, not a personal development book, not a coaching book, nothing that makes my brain hurt, just something that's fun. I'm reading Harry Potter right now to connect with my son on a better level. So I will do that.
Wonderful. Christine, what have you learned about yourself during this session?
That I'm still very, very hard on myself, but I'm getting better now at recognizing it and trying to correct that.
That's great. That's a powerful discovery or insight. Yeah,
Thank you.
great. How would you like to end our session today?
Just by saying thank you. I feel really emotional right now. I tend to feel that way when I feel gratitude. It makes me cry. But yeah, that's all. Thank you very much. I appreciate you helping me with the last piece of that, or what I hope is the last piece.
You're very welcome, and thank you for trusting me with that.
Thanks.
All right, thank you both. How do you feel about that, Georgie?
I don't know. I'm having a little bit of a mental glip right now. I think it took me, it's like it felt like the engine was moving really slow. I think I got, I don't know if startled or thrown aback at the beginning. It sounded like she came with a lot of clarity on what she wanted to do, and it was right there. It's like, okay, and so then what are we doing about that? So I think I felt like the slow motion, at the beginning, whether we're needing to refine the agreement, or exploring a little bit more the emotional part of it. And I think that showed in how I do the explanation or her not understanding some of my questions. I think I was get clear inside of where is it that we're wanting to go while I'm trying to ask the questions that I know I need to ask.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of the overthinking
Mm-hmm.
or concentrating on what needs to be done
Mm-hmm.
can take you out of presence, and yeah. Okay. All right, good. So who had 3? Let's talk through it.
That was me.
Okay. What did you see, Kim?
Well, I saw that she hit all the competencies for 3. And so I think, it seemed like her, like, for Christine, it was for time management. That was the outcome. And measure of success. How will you know by the end of this call? Number 3.3, importance and meaning. What would be most helpful? 3.4 needs to address what would carving out time do for you?
Okay. Yeah, so she has the focus. What would be a good outcome for the session today? How will you know by the end of the call? What would that look like? There's lots of questions in there that actually covered that. Yeah, okay. And I don't think I signed 4, right? Who had 5?
I've got 5.
Okay. What do you have?
Okay, so she hit all of these really great. And so let's see, coaching the person. I really like that. Let's see, coaching the agenda. She kept coming back to questions like how will you know when we get the outcome? Coaching the person, what comes up for you? Silence and pauses, yes, especially there towards the end when she was getting emotional. And then curious about the client. What have you learned about yourself? that's when she got the big emotion there. So yeah, she hit on all of these invites, client choice, and this is when, like, in the middle, she was like, okay, so which way would you like to go with that? Because she got a little bit more, content there, and she needed to know which direction that she wanted to move her in.
Yeah. Okay, good. 6.
That's me. I felt she used her custom language. The one thing that explores emotions, the one thing that I picked up on was she asked the question around how the plans would affect her emotions, which I kind of really liked. And then the other thing too is that I found 6.5 explores perceptions, beliefs, assumptions with the question of how can she reframe. And I also felt that the what have you learned about yourself in this session goes along in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there was no interruptions, and the
There's no-
summaries were good as well.
Exactly.
Um, I think the one thing I saw here that might have worked was that there was an energy shift for Christine, and really just asking that, or noticing it and then asking the question around it, but just, I think that would have been something that could have, because it was you could see that shift pretty well. Just something to give you some feedback there. And then 7.
Yeah. I was in and out. I'm just so tired, but I also had the how could you reframe question about current way of thinking 7.1. What have you learned about yourself? Would that apply to maybe 7.2 or 7.3? I don't know.
7.2. Yeah.
7.2, yeah. I know they talked about it, but I don't know what the questions were. I think she probably covered, 7.3 and 7.4. I don't know. I don't have specific questions. The 7.5 I had, how will the changes make you feel?
Okay. Yeah. Good.
And then, I mean, I think she was mostly asking open questions, and I think she asked concise questions. Sometimes Christine wasn't understanding how to answer them, but I felt like they were concise. And then I definitely think Christine did most of the talking.
Yeah. I had somewhat for concise language, but that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. 8.
8, yep. So for 8.1, it was towards the end, but she said, how do you feel about the progress we've made so far? So I thought that was great. No, I'm having problems reading my handwriting. She said, she asked her a question about actions to feel aligned with her goal. And I was debating whether that was 8.4, 8.7. In 8.2, she had the new learning about being hard on herself. And then she went on to say something else. I wasn't fast enough in my writing. But she talked about how she was just hard on herself and that was a learning for her. And then 8.9, she did close and ask her how she would like to end.
Yeah. I think 8 was really strong. Scored,
I think 8's really hard to hit them all, though, isn't it?
I mean, it's not supposed to be hard.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
say that. Because, exploring progress, how do you feel, about the progress we've made so far? Or how much progress do you think we've made? Simple question. What have you learned about yourself today? That's a simple question, right? As well. And then now the new learning or focus, could be missed because asking them specifically, what that learning in the session. I mean, I typically would say something like, so that, what can you do with that new learning going forward? Or how do you apply that new learning? So that one maybe is not so prevalent in everybody's. Same thing with the applying new learning. How do you want to apply it? How do you want to, how are we going to, what are you going to focus on going forward? Kind of how you can combine those two. But the apply part is typically easier than the new learning focus.
Is that one
And
of
then-
the ones, sorry, Cheryl, is that one of the ones from that, the 8 markers that we have to hit? Remember when you told us the ones that we do from each?
I don't have that list up, but I think 4 was, not 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And then post-session activities. That's easily done, right? What are the actual steps? Now, that can be done during the session, it can be done at the end. Depends on your conversations. And then challenges, like what can get in the way? What do you need to support? Now, the celebrating or the championing, yeah, just saying I noticed, a shift from the beginning of the conversation, or, I was glad to see, that you feel more confident, like something there that's going to celebrate or champion them. And then how would you like to close the session? So that's really, 8 is really strong and can be done more so than I think than all the other ones. I mean, the agreement you think is pretty easy, but people struggle with hitting all 4 of those. Anyway, that's just my experience with it. So I think it was a good session, and you did hit all 4 of the agreement, and that's, again, if you have that agreement strong, then typically the rest of your conversation is going to go well. And then just 4. So, I think Georgie was, you were very supportive. I think when we look at 4.1, like acknowledging talent, insight, and work, again, it's something like, I just want to commend you on, going from yada yada to yada yada, or, I really liked seeing how you grew during that session. Something that's going to have that acknowledgement in there. I think that's an easy thing to do if we just get used to it. It's something to get used to. It's like a habit we have to create, because it's not typically something we think about doing in our sessions.
You know what I've been having a little or struggling a bit with is, I think in one of the sessions that you mentioned, the not using the I language so much. I feel really robotic if I'm going to offer a compliment that is not I statement, like it has been done, or I guess you are commended. I don't know if it's linguistic things, but
or just saying something like there's so much
Right,
growth in what you've done, from where you were at the beginning of the session to where you are now.
there was so
So I
much
think,
saying mean. I noticed, yeah.
yeah. What were you saying, Dee?
No, I was just chatting in. Go ahead. Thanks for that.
So anyway, yeah, just something like that. And then acknowledging expressions. So when you do hear an expression, just, saying, I hear you using the language that you are worth it, or why don't I do that? I'm definitely worth it. Just to acknowledge those expressions. But yeah, I mean, you asked mostly open-ended questions, obviously. There was like maybe 2 close-ended. I think you're curious, about the client, and that you coach the agenda, you coach the person. I think you hit most of these markers. I think for exploring emotions, there could have been a little bit more of that, especially since. So I don't know if you guys picked this up, but like Chris, and I'm just going to talk about you, Christine. Christine sometimes doesn't look like there's a lot of emotion going on there, right? But there is. Like if you really tune into her, there's a lot of emotion in almost every response that she gives you. And so it's very easy to, if you open yourself up to it, to pick that up for her or any client that has kind of the same makeup as she does. And then, be able to explore the emotions with her.
I think that's where at the end, when she started sharing a little bit more about feeling emotional, we would have had an hour session, which typically I think I would have felt drawn to exploring more of that.
Yeah. So towards the end of the conversation, it's probably not a great idea. But in the middle, like you saw, again, there were some shifts there that you can explore the emotion behind the shift, that you like the tone of voice change. Like when she had that little bit of bravado, like, that confidence jolt. That's some things that you can ask questions around for feelings. Anyway, it was a good session. So thank
Specifically
you for that.
at that point where she said, I tend to ignore my feelings to take a break. And then Coach Georgie came in with what gets in the way. But at that point, what gets in, I ignore my feelings to take a break. How would
Yeah.
would you have coached that? Tell me that, Georgie, if it's okay with you to ask Coach Cheryl about that, because I thought that was a fascinating, thing. So,
Yeah, you can I would ask the client, why do you tend to ignore that feeling?
okay.
What do you get
Okay,
out
and
of it? Like, what's the positive of that? What do you get out of it? Of ignoring it? Or what's the negative? But definitely question it. It's definitely a place to question.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgie, for letting me ask the question on your session.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Okay, good session. I think, again, just going a little bit deeper on the feelings, I think there was a surface level feel to it, even though these markers were hit. And so it's when you really include the feeling part of it that gets a little bit deeper and takes it off the surface. I think that would have helped. Okay, so next week, I will see you guys on the 17th, Tuesday, and I see you on Thursday. And we only have 2 hours on Thursday because we only need 2 more hours for the 7 hours. So it'll be 6:30 to 8:30 on Thursday. But Tuesday's a regular class, and our coaching sessions are on Tuesday. We have Marcy coaching Kim and Lori coaching
Marcy.
Christine.
No,
Oh,
she's going to
Lori
coach.
coaching
Yeah.
Marcy.
Oh, if you hate my voice, make sure that Tuesday's the night you miss.
Stop.
Okay. And then the group mentoring, we have Holly coaching Marcy. Right? Okay. Yep. All right, guys.
Cheryl,
Thank you.
sorry,
Yeah.
I know we're almost at 9. You said we're supposed to have 8 peer coaching sessions, right?
Yes.
And I think we're down to 7 people. Are we not? Like, well, 8, but like 7 for me to work with. 8 total, right?
There on mine, there's somebody I double coach.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we just double coach someone.
Yeah, you just need those hours for the credits.
And it has to be somebody from the class?
Yes, it's a peer coaching.
Okay. Is
Yep,
there
so what-
anybody else? Is there anybody else who needs to double up that wants to do it again?
Aren't you
I would
scheduled?
coach again.
Hang
It's
on.
scheduled. No, it's scheduled.
They're all scheduled.
Oh, well,
So
I don't think a lot of us are following the actual schedule, Cheryl. I think we're just.
who's not following the schedule and why? You should be following the schedule. It's laid out. Now, I don't care about the weeks you did it, but you're all paired and you should be following the schedule.
Mhm.
So look at the schedule and see who you're supposed to double coach.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys, 9 o'clock. I'll see you next week. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or message me. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.